So in the reporting category, you'll see that there are a number of widgets that allow you to do basic reporting. Now this is not something that you would want to use for the non-Alteryx users to look at your reports or to generate data to be reporting. For that, you really want to be utilizing one of the tools such as Report Writer, Crystal Reports, Business Objects, Tableau, just to name a few. And there's a number of reasonable freeware alternatives out there that are in the public domain. But where I see Alteryx reports falling into is basically two areas. One, if you're looking at some data, you're analyzing it, and you just think a picture of what you see there might help you figure out what you've discovered. Why do you want to create a data set, drop it out there somewhere in a database or on a server, take it into a Tableau or Business Objects to do some exploration, and then decide the data really wasn't what you thought it was, and then go back to the drawing board to build more data? Within Alteryx, then you can pretty much take a very simplistic look, but do some meaningful reports to help you with your analysis. And then one thing I used it for as well from a sharing standpoint is when I pull some data down for a business analyst that was having trouble blending and cleansing their data, I built what I thought was a reasonable data set, and to help them understand what I had built, I just ran a quick report with Alteryx, saved it into a JPEG, included the JPEG in an email, and then sent them the email. One thing you'll notice in this list of options is that you can email a report as well. When I was with my previous company, I actually explored the ability to go to our Exchange server and was able to configure the email output from the reporting to go to that server, recognize the server information, take the message in. However, it then told me that I did not have permission to utilize that part of the server to generate an email. To me, that meant I got there, it works, and I would probably explore that sometime in the future should I have the need for emailing out quick alert reports for people to look at. That being said, it is nice to go ahead and look at what all of these different widgets, what some of these widgets can do for you, since Alteryx has gone to the trouble to create them and put them out there for you to use. Did that get accomplished? We want to go ahead and bring in our two data sets that we created previous. I want to do that from a copy and paste standpoint, just to simplify this video. Again, leave me a comment if you want to know how the data was brought in, how to do inputs and outputs, specifically if you have a database issue of yourself. But here we're just bringing in our two files that we created previously in workflows, the sales report and the adoption report. Remember that the sales report was this running total that we wanted to graphically show to someone, and the adoption report was just a count by day of the number of puppies that were waiting for their final adoption papers to come through. Simplistically look at the data that's here. So let's begin with one of the very basic reports that you might like to use. If you don't want to go ahead and use a spreadsheet, we actually have what's called the basic table or a table widget right here. Drop this down, and this gives you just a very simplistic way. You can do some field configuration, etc. I'll leave that to your own device, but essentially this is a great way to look at the basic data. So I'll put it out in a table format. Something that a lot of people don't realize when you're working with these reporting widgets is that you can just drop them into a browse widget as well, and it'll show you the report, just like it would data. So if we go ahead and run this, so we have a basic table, and the output actually shows us the format that it would be if we rendered it into some other format. It basically shows us all of the reporting data. Since we didn't do any group bys or anything along those lines, it just is that basic data coming out. While this looks nice, it might be good to see it in a graphical format. And to do it in a graphical format, we're going to go ahead and look at bringing another one of the reporting tools down. For this, we're going to be using something that came out a few versions ago. Before you had to sort of do all these reportings manually, it now has what it calls its interactive chart. It's a nice little way to go ahead and create a report picture and being able to see exactly what it looks like on your way out. What we have to do when we run the interactive chart is we need to run the workflow in order to get data flow into it so it knows what to do. And in this case, what we're going to do is create a multi-line chart that will present the sales numbers as a running total broken down by month. So to do that, the first thing we need to do is to add a layer. We want to give it a name. Monthly sales. Report. The type we're going to choose is to be a line. Across the x-axis, we want the sales day of month. And on the y-axis, we want to go ahead and have the running total amount. Looks pretty messy because this is all of the data that it's situated, trying to draw lines between them. In order to make this into the broken down by year or month, we want to go ahead and create a transformation. So first we created the layer, and then we're going to want to create a transformation. It's going to be a split. It's been enabled, and we want to do a column sales year month. So what it does now is it goes ahead and breaks our report out to have one line for each year month. It gives them different colors so you can see them easily and gives you a legend. So very simply now we have a look at our raw data. We have a look at a picture of it, and we want to put those two together into a report. We're done with this, so we can close it. Again, as we talked about before, we can put a browse on the end of it, run it, and you can see in our browse widget, you can actually see the report appearing. It's good for you to see, not necessarily good for someone else to see, and we'll look at putting that together as well. To show you a slightly different style of report, something that we might want to use interactively, before we go ahead and put all this together and share it with our users. Let's take a look at this adoption data. As you can see, it's very terse data. It has the number of puppies that are sold for each kennel that are pending adoption. Something that you might want to do so you can look at the data coming into it. So what we want to do is create a stacked bar chart that has the pending count by kennel, by month. And to do that, we want to go ahead and bring in something that's much more interactively oriented. That's just simply there to let you browse and see the data. Here in reporting, we want to go ahead and choose our insight chart. If you notice that this is simply a terminator, this allows me to look at the data interactively. Also allows me to post this data into a Alteryx server where you have galleries created. I myself do not have an Alteryx server, so I cannot post it to the gallery. The company I came with did, and so I would post these occasionally out there so people could see some pictures of what's going on from a support standpoint. So let's go ahead and configure this. Again, before we can configure it, the first thing we must do is run it to get data going into it. That turns blue so we can actually configure it. What we want to do is create a chart. And we do it by dropping the chart into this picture. It'd be nice if it was a little bit bigger. So we're going to go ahead and drag this out so it fills more of our page up so we can use it. Gets to be a little bit fun because you only can sort of drag it from the bottom. You can drop and drag it up. So what we want to do for this chart is go ahead and edit it. Again, it looks sort of the same as before in the fact that what we want to do is create a layer, call that puppies awaiting final adoption. We're going to create this as a bar chart because I want to make it a stacked bar. And the column that we want to use it for our bar chart is going to be across the x-axis, the pending adoption date, across the y-axis. We want to put the pending adoption count. So this will show us by day. Doesn't look very clean because even though it's now a bar chart, we want to make it a stacked bar chart so we can see it easier. In that case, what we want to do is go ahead and create a transform, split this, select the column. It's going to be the kennel name. And what we want to do as well having broken this out, we can get our individual kennels over here, but this style is trying to show us all the data simultaneously. It makes it very hard to see anything that's going on in there at all. So let's go ahead and get this into a stacked bar chart. We go back to our layer, we look at our layer, and the bar mode is to stack it. And now you can see that it looks quite nice. We can sort of drag across it and see what each one of these is showing us. We want to see a little bit more detail. So we want to be able to show in the hover text the trace name. And so now as you go to each of these boxes, it'll tell you who it is. And what this is simply good for is so that we can run this, come into this tool, and then look at our data. Didn't get that quite right in our layer. It's fun to play with these charts. I think we clicked it at the wrong place. Let's try it there. There we go. So what I got this coming is within a definition, the text to be the kennel name. So then as we go to each piece of the bar, it'll tell us the kennel name. So May 19th, you see we have 3 kennels, 2 there, 3 there. And you can sort of see the coloration gives a little bit more insight so you can drag and drop around it. Again, this tool is simply here so that you can take a look at the data and also post it onto a server. It does not give you the ability to put it into another source, such as a PDF, to share with people. So that's pretty cool. And the last thing we want to do with this, just to show you what's going on, let's close the editor. We can see it here. So now we have a look of it. We want to add some text so people can see it. That's where the text editor comes in. Drag this over and say this is puppies pending adoption. Make it bold. Adopt. Change the format. Make it large. Give it a color. A few other things we can do with it. So it gives us a little title. Not the best of things to use, but it'll keep us going through. Again, not very useful, but just a chance to look at your data possibly to give you a picture while you're developing against it. Here's where we can register with a gallery if we want to, but we have no galleries defined. That's just one of the tools in here. So let's go back up here to our little standard charting that we did. Let's go ahead and delete off these two browse widgets. We want to get both of these reports into the same file. And just like any other workflow, what we need to do with them is to combine them. And we're going to go ahead and combine these with an Append Fields to get them into one page. So we get basically two reports put into one stream. Again, this is just data. It is a special data type coming through. And we're going to actually want to switch these up because we would like the picture to come out first. We want the table to come out second. Let's put our browse back on the end. Run this, and you can see here's our chart. That's one record. And the table as the second one. So we have two different reports put into the same stream as two separate records. We now want to go ahead and do some work to get this ready to be sent into a PDF document to send to someone. First thing I want to do is I want to put a title on this. I have the report text option here, which is just simply stick some text onto this report output. I don't want to add a new field. I just simply want to attach it to the chart. I want to place the text above the existing object. And I actually want it to say in here is puppy sales running total. I can do some other fonts to change colors, making it bold. I want to do some more pretty work to go with it. We're just going to sort of leave it this way. So again, if we run this, take a look at here, we see now it says puppy sales running total at the very beginning of this, and the chart follows. That looks good. We want to lay this out so that it's in a vertical context rather than side by side, because we'll run out of paper that way. So what we have in here is the layout. So let's lay out these two reports. We want to choose the layout mode of each individual record. So each record in here will have its own layout separation. We want it to be vertical with section breaks. We want to use chart and table. We have some other things we can change if we like, but I sort of like these just the way they are. So now we go into browse, we can see that it is top to bottom for our report, which will look good sending it into a PDF. So then the last thing that we want to do is render it into a file so it can be shared. In this case, I'm going to take the defaults, which is that we'll make a temporary PDF file. I give it its type and mode. I can give it a place and a location. Do some other changes as far as the style, landscape with portrait. Run this. Look at the log, and you see the PDF got written down here. Click on that, and sure enough, it brings up a PDF document. It has our picture in it. It has our supporting data in it. And then we can share this PDF with people that were waiting for it. So that gives us two different versions of reporting that we've done. We've done some pictorial and some basic table data coming out into rendering into a PDF. We've done a little interactive chart so you can actually just take a quick look at the insights of that data, not actually sharing it with anybody. So when I generate this report for John Q, I can go ahead and send them this output and say this is what you're looking at. Is this the data that you wanted? Is what you want to see on a regular basis? And then I would probably follow this up and go into Tableau and create a more interactive report for him to be able to do some slicing and dicing of this data. But at least I know I was in the general area. So this wraps us up. This takes us from the raw data coming in, joining it to our master data, taking a look at how I can generate test data, finally looking at creating some reporting tables that can be used down the road, and then generate some basic reporting out of Alteryx that I can share quickly, or look at myself just to make sure I'm in the right direction with the data that I'm playing with.